Thank you all.
Okay, everybody, thank you, Donna. So now it is time for our first guest. Wonderful Catherine White. Got your race reporter, you're all good?
Stand up, please.
Excuse me, I have to do a personal injury to one of the attendees.
Give him a punch. Give him a Charlie horse.
You are nothing but trouble. All right, I'm going to use this because they asked if I would use this. I was actually told that what I needed to talk about was the ghouls and zombies that are chasing the Constitution. And mainly the ghouls and zombies that are chasing the Constitution are a lack of understanding. I was at a State House hearing yesterday for the Article 5 convention bills. And between 1:30 and 5:30, I heard so much misinformation, lack of information, or wrong information about the Constitution. It was really, really appalling. And all the people who spoke, other than me and a couple of folks who were from a specific group, one person said the word Republic, and it was kind of in passing, like they weren't really sure what it was. So those are the ghouls and zombies that are chasing the Constitution, is lack of understanding. So what we're going to do is try to get some understanding. But in order to really understand the Constitution, we have to back up a step and look at the Declaration of Independence. Page it down, please. All right, from the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable, inherent, and inseparable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and property. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and whenever any government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right and the duty of the people to alter or to abolish it. So what does all this mean? Hold, in this usage, to formally assert or affirm truth conforming to supreme reality in accordance with natural law by Cicero, self-evident, containing its own proof inside it. Therefore, we hold these truths to be self-evident is, we formally affirm these concepts as self-proving and in accordance with supreme reality. That all men are created equal. Men, the collective noun for mankind. So let's not get into the PC feminist nonsense, because this is mankind. Equal. How? Iron Mike is taller than I am. So we're not equal. But I'm smarter than Mike. So we're not equal.
That wasn't hard.
No, shooting fish in a barrel. I'm probably a better shot than he is.
Ooh, I wouldn't say that. Oh.
We'll have to find out. I'm in the top 3 in the Greater Boston Pistol League so far this year. So, equal. We're not equal at all. So how are we equal? We're equal in rights. We are to be treated equally under the law. And most importantly, to the eyes of the founders and the framers, we are equal in the eyes of our Creator. All men, all mankind are made in His image and likeness, precious in His sight and worthy of respect for that fact alone. Now, if you're an atheist, I recommend the big long 50-page speech in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, where she makes the atheist case for that. It's long, it's convoluted, but our founders were not atheists, and they were writing from their point of view, nobody else's. So we are endowed by our Creator as an intrinsic aspect of our humanity. So that means that our rights are not granted by any government document, or by any human. And those gifts of our Creator are ours. So they are off limits. They are not subject to being revised. They're not subject to discussion. They're not subject to review. They're not subject to limitation. They are outside of any access by other people. So, certain unalienable rights. Unalienable, inseparable, inherent, unable to be taken away from or given away by the possessor. And they are an intrinsic part of our existence, just like your heartbeat is an intrinsic part of your existence. Your thoughts are an intrinsic part of your existence. The dreams you have at night are an intrinsic part of your existence. They can't be taken away from you. So what's a right? It's a left. No. It's the other left. No. Black's Law Dictionary defines a right as a power, faculty, or demand inherent, again, built in, to one person and incident upon another, or the powers of free action. So they are inherent. They can never be removed or limited. And since they come to us by our Creator and are inherent, inseparable, and unalienable, it means that they also predate, transcend, and supersede the Constitution. So what power does the Constitution have over our rights?
None.
None. Exactly. Predate, transcend, supersede. They hold the trump cards. Not Donald, just the trump cards. So what's a privilege? Again, Black's Law Dictionary says that a privilege is a particular and peculiar benefit or advantage enjoyed by a person beyond the common advantages of other citizens. So privileges are granted. That means that they can be revoked. For example, you have my permission to cut across my backyard to get to the bus stop because it's faster, it's safer, you don't have to go out into the road.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So that is a privilege that I have granted you. And then one day, I'm standing at my back door, looking out while I'm drinking my tea, and I see you crossing to get to the bus stop. But you have not been keeping your dog and your dog's poop on your side of the property line.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
Yeah. So I open up the back door and I say, hey, go around. Your privilege has just been revoked. My property, my rules, my power to grant or revoke. Now, if you clean up the dog waste, bring me some flowers.
No, we'll negotiate.
Because I don't want you to get hit by a bus either.
Oh, thank you.
So privileges are granted and can be revoked. It is greatly to the advantage of anyone interested in large, powerful government for people to confuse the difference, to conflate rights and privileges. Harry Reid said, we're going to give them the privilege of free health care. So, we're going to give them the right to health care. Give a right by a government. How does that work? Can a government give a right?
No.
Given a privilege, it can be revoked.
They can give a privilege. They can give a privilege, which can then be revoked. But if they have you thinking that a right is something given by government and can be revoked, they may be able to trick you into giving away control of your rights by having you think that they have the power to do that. Down one, please. Thank you. So, rights and privileges are opposites. Before we go farther, just hold there. The PowerPoint laptop thing didn't work, so these are PDFs, and he has to be my page downer.
Okay.
When you are trying to figure out if something is a right or a privilege. Michael Bagnarek, in his fabulous book, Good to be King, gives 3 questions to ask that almost always make the situation very clear. Well, not 3 questions. He gives three corollaries. One is that all rights are based on property. The second is that every right comes with a responsibility. The third is that the only limitation on your rights is the equal rights of others. And the question to ask when is this a right or a privilege is, who owns the property? So if we go back to Harry Reid, we're going to give them the right to health care. Okay, you own your body. That's your property. It's your responsibility to take care of it. So, part of taking care of it might be that you need health care. Do you own the stethoscopes? Do you own the medical school education? Do you own the laboratory reagents? Do you own the nurse who has to draw blood? Do you own the doctor who has to write the prescription? No. So health care is not a right. If you say that health care is a right, it means you believe in slavery. Because it means that you think it is your right to force someone to provide services to you. It doesn't matter whether you pay them or not. You are forcing them to provide services to you. Forced servitude is slavery. All right, so certain unalienable rights, and among these are life. That's the first gift. If you don't have your life, you don't have anything, right? And that life belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the government. It doesn't belong to the king. Does not belong to your wife or husband. Does not belong to your kids.
Society.
Does not belong to society. Does not belong to your boss. You are the sovereign, the king, over your own life. And that's why Michael Bagnarek's book is called Good to be King. It's to underscore that you are sovereign over your own life. There. Ta-da! Liberty. Along with your life, you have the right to live that life free from government interference. And the only limitation on that right is the equal rights of others to live their lives freely. Some people say that this is the my rights stop at the just before it hits your nose theory. Okay. And property. In Locke's second treatise on government, which was well read and well known at the time the Constitution and the Declaration were written, he speaks of property, not pursuit of happiness. It was changed when the Declaration of Independence was written for a couple of reasons. One of which was already to undercut the future use of their my property argument to support slavery. But also they wanted to make it even broader than property. Pursuit of happiness is not the ability to sit on your couch in your sweats, clicker in hand, and beer in the other hand. It was an Aristotelian ideal to strive for excellence in every area of your life. No matter what you do with your life, to strive for excellence. You know, years ago when I was an engineer, one of the other engineers in my group, her dad was a blueberry farmer in Michigan. And he had a poster from the Michigan Blueberry Growers Association. It was kind of simple. It had, a quart of blueberries sort of overflowing. And at the bottom it said, if excellence is not the goal, why bother? That is the Aristotelian ideal of pursuit of happiness. Yes, sir?
Didn't it also entertain a religious component, that it was allowing people to have freedom of religion, where you would not be able to be happy? And people were, at the time of the Revolution, they were being imprisoned for not conforming to the Church of England.
Well, yeah, it's all part of the liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right? Striving for excellence, living your life free of government control. Part of the big problem with England was that they had a state religion, which is the Church of England, and that's why the Declaration of Independence was not only treason but also heresy, because in rejecting the king, they were also rejecting God's representative on earth. So treason and heresy all rolled into one. But yes, you know, and it also ties in to the First Amendment. The freedom of religion was freedom from an official state-sponsored religion supported by taxes. Basically, your tithe to the church would be by tax. You can just imagine the IRS enforcing that one.
Yes.
Like the Congregational Church was in Massachusetts.
Like the
Up until
Congregational
1850s.
Church, yes. And in fact, I think the latest, and again, memory, the latest incident of somebody being taxed as a tithe for the state, their state church, was a Quaker farmer's cow getting taken by the state, and I think that was in New Hampshire in the late 1800s. All the states had their own state religions at the time, and those were sponsored at the state level,
But not the national level.
but not the national level. And why'd they come here? Freedom of religion. So they really did not want the Quakers didn't want to be Congregationalists, and the Congregationalists didn't want to be Catholic, and the Catholics didn't want to be Methodists. So they wanted to be able to support their own churches themselves, not be forced to support somebody's church and then their own on top of that. Okay, Chris. Somebody smells really good. All right. So, to secure these rights, governments are instituted. That means that the true purpose of government, in accordance with Cicero's natural law of right reason and agreement with nature, is solely to secure, defend, protect, and hold inviolable the rights with which our Creator endowed us. That's the purpose of government. Not to give us stuff, not to give us health care, not to provide for retirement income, but to secure and protect our rights, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. And we tend to gloss over deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. Just. That's actually a really important word in that
It is
phrase.
an important word.
So what is the just power of a government? Well, from the previous slide, right, we know that the just powers help in securing people's rights, defending them, protecting them. They are powers that are specifically delegated to that level of government. And there are many levels of government. In this country, we have at least three, maybe more if you parse it out. One is the federal level, state level, and local level. And in some places, you've got county as well as town. So at least three levels of government. So the powers that are just for that level of government are the ones that are delegated to be addressed at that level. And they are powers where people have given actual consent and not usurpations. Basically, mine,
Wait a second.
mine now, here. That's a usurpation, also known as theft. What I gave it.
Death wish.
Okay, Mike was protecting. He said he hasn't killed anybody in a while, and then he wants to.
Way too long.
My husband has a T-shirt with red dots all over it that says darts instructor. So, what's the proper level of governance? Well, at the federal level, according to the Constitution, it's all large-scale, impersonal, and at a distance, not having any impact on our day-to-day lives. Because what were they? They were trying to get rid of break away from England, get rid of the big oppressive central power. But what were they? There were 13 at that time colonies with very different interests and agendas. The last thing they wanted to do was swap out one big centralized power from another. On the other hand, they had written against them. We had France and Spain that were friendly at the time, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But we had the French and Indian War only a couple of decades earlier, and France had a big interest in Canada. The Spanish had a big interest in Florida. They really needed to unite and present a unified front, link elbows and say, okay, we're gonna work together to deal with all of these other big, powerful countries. So the federal government's purpose was outward looking, international. And it's one of enumerated powers, enumerated numbers. Power number 1, power number 2, power number 3. If there is no power number 4, you don't get it. And if you try and take it, that's called usurpation and stealing. And it's bad. At the state level, it's a smaller scale, it's more personal, it's closer to your day-to-day life. That's where we get elevator inspectors and zoning boards and stuff like that. So one is looking at big things and one is looking at smaller, closer to you. From the preamble to the U.S. Constitution, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Who? We, the people. Not the states. We, the people of the states united. But we, the people. Not the federal government. The Constitution created the federal government. Not the government under the Articles of Confederation. The people of the states, united in purpose. In order to form a more perfect union, well, that begs the question, more perfect than what? More perfect than the Articles of Confederation, which was a perpetual union that was falling apart after only 10 years in existence, because they were so chary of giving a central government too much power that when they wrote up and agreed to the Articles of Confederation, they had too little power to function. There was no power to tax. It required unanimous approval for all actions, and you can't get 13 people to agree on toppings for 4 pizzas, let alone 13 states with very different interests to agree on much of anything. And this money was valueless. Who's ever here heard the expression, not worth a continental?
Yeah.
That was the continental dollar, and it wasn't worth anything. Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. Now, these are the basic requirements for a stable, civil society where people can run their daily lives free from interference by the federal government. And you'll notice also that they are sort of large scale and impersonal, right? It says domestic tranquility. It doesn't say what time the bars need to close, right? It says establish justice, not how much money you need to put in for the parking meter. Large scale, impersonal. And promote the general welfare. According to Webster's Dictionary in 1828, which is available online, general welfare was the exemption from any unusual evil or calamity, the enjoyment of peace and prosperity, and the ordinary blessings of society and civil government. Now, is there anything in there about EBT cards?
No.
No. Is there anything in there about Section 8 housing? I don't see it. Is there anything in there about giving cash to people who are down on their luck? No.
Or giving cash to people who aren't doing it.
Or giving cash to people who aren't down their luck, or giving cash to big companies who have managed to buy off the right legislature to get that written into the tax code.
Or other nations.
Or other nations.
Catherine,
Yes, sir.
the key word here, and I've looked this up before, and it repeats itself in several other volumes of Webster's dictionary. The key word is exemption from any unusual evil or calamity. Exemption from. The argument is always posted about promote the general welfare, or I mean provide the general welfare, excuse me. It's like that whole separation of church and state that everyone somehow thinks is in the Constitution. I don't mean us, but you know what I'm talking about. When they say provide the general welfare, it's no. The word is promote, and in Webster's dictionary, the key word is exemption, which means that the government has absolutely no business doing any of the things that Catherine was talking about. None of it is even described. I just finished reading Barry Goldwater's Conscience of a Conservative. He does a great chapter in there about the whole Department of Education, and of course it didn't exist at the time, but at the time they were talking about it. He was staunchly against this. It's like the Constitution says nothing about it. It says nothing about how the federal government needs to provide money, provide for it, and he cites all these things about how the various cities, towns, and states have plenty of money and everything is working fine. Are there communities poor? Yes, it's up to those communities to band together with other communities and provide the schools for those children. But again, people keep going around saying, provide the general welfare, provide. No, it's that key word, exemption. The government has no role in I'd say about 90% of the bureaus that are out there today. Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay. And there's more definitions in Article 1, Section 8. Okay. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. This is the mission statement. The preamble is the mission statement for the whole thing. This is the whole point. Secure the blessings of liberty, not stuff. Not guarantees that you're going to have, a house in the burbs, 2.6 children, and 3 cars in the driveway. Liberty. So that you can try and make whatever you want to make out of your life. If you want to be a real estate magnate and have bad hair and run for president, go for it, dude. If you want to just, lick envelopes for the local PTA twice a year, go for it. What do you want to make of your life, free from government interference? What place do you want to strive for? Maybe you want to have the very best jellied sauerkraut recipe the world has ever seen. I'm not going to sample it for you, but go for it. Liberty. To ourselves, that was them. And our posterity, that's us. Okay? Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. It's kind of almost like church language. Ordain. Isn't it? It's very deliberate. To ordain is to enact, install, commission, fix, or set in place. And establish, similar but slightly different, set up and organize. This embodies principles that predate the Magna Carta that was signed in 1215, which is that the created entity is never greater in legal stature than that which creates it. So we, the people, do ordain and establish. So we, the people, are the boss. And the government we are creating through this document is lesser in standing than we are. It is our creature. It is subservient to us. It is not our master. We were not inventing a new king. So who are the parties to the compact here? Ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So we the people are ordaining and establishing. So we the people are going to be one of the parties to the compact. The United states. So this kind of implies that the states are also party to the compact. Anybody else? Is the federal government a party to this
That doesn't
compact?
say that.
No. The federal government is created by this compact. It is not party to it. It wasn't there at the negotiating table. It didn't carve out a niche for itself. And because it is not a party to the compact, it has no power to change the terms of the contract. So all those places of federal overreach are completely illegal. And they only get away with it because we, the people, have fallen asleep at the switch and are allowing it to happen. And part of that is long laid plans of the statists who want large, powerful government. So who's the party to the compact? The people, the states, nobody else. So we talk left, right, left, right. The left is horrible. The right, rah, rah, right. It's the wrong metric. This is based off of a chart in Scusen's 5,000-year lead, where he spends, it's a fabulous book, he spends time talking about the types of government and the types of ways of dealing with it. And the real continuum is from 0% government power to 100% government power. Now, 0% government power is anarchy. And we have the anarcho-libertarians who think that, oh, anarchy, that's what we need. No. Anarchy is not a stable form, or we would be living under anarchy because it does give, in theory, people the most personal freedom. But anarchy in real life is a schoolyard with bullies. And eventually, the biggest bully gets all the other bullies to enforce his bulliedom. Anarchy is unstable and always, in reality, devolves into tyranny, because even tyranny is better than anarchy. So, really, this should be a circle with the tip of this arrow right next to the tip of that arrow. The Articles of Confederation, as originally written, were too close to anarchy. There was insufficient power for the government to function. So when they wrote the Constitution, they tried to give it just a little bit more power, a little farther from anarchy, but nowhere near the total government power. But when you look at both the left and the right, they're really all interested in total government power. Whether you're talking about the DNC, tyrants, dictators, Nazis, fascists, communists, socialists, or unions, they all want total government power on the left. But the RNC, other tyrannies, other dictatorships, monarchies, and theocracies, they are right-leaning, 100% government power groups. Now there's this little thing here called people's law, power from the people up from Anglo-Saxon common law and from the Bible in Exodus, how they organized after the Exodus from Egypt. And that's what they were looking to reestablish here. And if you would drop down to the next. So the people's law is where people retain all the power. And most questions and problems are solved down here at the people's level. And then a lesser number of things get solved at the state level. And then at the very top, there's a few big ticket items like national defense and international relations that get solved at the federal highest power level. We're going more and more to this one, where the federal government has all the power. They let the state have not so much jurisdiction as enforcement over some areas, and then the drips and drabs and dregs are left to the people. Chief Justice John Marshall in the important decision in 1803 of Marbury versus Madison said the powers of the legislature are defined and limited, and that those limits may not be mistaken or forgotten. The Constitution is written. This decision, Marbury versus Madison, did not give the Supreme Court final say in whether or not things were constitutional, laws passed by Congress were constitutional. One of the issues that they had to decide was whether or not they had the authority to hear the case. And that's where the idea of the Supreme Court being judge of whether or not something was constitutional came from. But Chief Justice John Marshall states very clearly, defined, limited. So what are the defined and limited powers of the legislature? The Constitution has only 7 articles. I brought pocket constitutions and didn't even take them out because I got involved in equipment setup. It'll fit in your shirt pocket, the supreme law of the land. 7 articles, legislature, executive, judicial, federal-state interactions, how to amend, a few other housekeeping bits, and then ratification. Article 1 is the legislative. It's also the biggest because this was going to be where most federal power was supposed to be used. So the powers of the legislature are granted, which makes them what?
Rescindable.
Rescindable, but what do we call a power that is granted?
Privilege.
It's a privilege. It's not a right, it's privilege. It is granted. That means it can be revoked. By who?
People.
People, whenever we've got the guts and the knowledge to do so. Article 1 includes the census and the dreaded 3/5 clause. Why do we have a census? Well, the original power of taxation was by apportionment, which means head count. Your state has 25,000 people, your state has 50,000 people. We need $75,000 in taxes, so you give us 25,000, you give us 50,000, $1 a person. In order to apportion those direct taxes, they had to have a head count. That makes sense?
Yes.
It also was to apportion the number of representatives in Congress. So that's why we have it. Now, the 3/5 clause, this is the first of many things that the left takes and puts on its head and tries to turn into something it isn't. It says, oh, you know, they considered the blacks only 3/5 of a person, and that's because they were all hate-filled white rich people. Actually, no. It was the slave-owning states that wanted all the slaves to be counted. Why?
Representatives.
Better
Representatives.
representation.
They got more representatives. Now, they fudged the numbers in the count because while they wanted more representatives, they also didn't want to pay as much tax. It was the non-slave owning states and the places where abolition movements were strong that wanted none of the slaves to be counted for the purposes of taxes and representation. So this was actually an abolitionist clause that gave the slave-owning states enough extra representation to keep them happy and in the Union without giving them so much that they would have too much political power.
I think that was also penned by, I believe, Wilson from Pennsylvania, which was a free state.
Yeah, of the 13 states, when the Constitution was written in 1787, only 4 had slavery illegal. Now that was, to the best that I've been able to find out, only 4 places on the planet where slavery was illegal at the time. Slavery has been legal in every country and in every century since one person was bully enough enough to force somebody else to do what they wanted. And it is still around today, underground, in every country in the world, including this one.
Sad but true.
Sad but true. Hey, I got a spam email just 2 days ago asking if I wanted a Russian bride. These days they call it human trafficking. Where was I? If you look at this clause also, it says, actually I'm just going to grab my copy of the Constitution.
It would be much more fun if you had like a giant book that was your pocket constitution.
That would be fun. It's just too small. Doesn't need it. Alright. Tiny little pages.
I have my cheater.
That's okay. Alright. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the states according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, indentured servants. Basically, I worked for you for 7 years if you pay my transport over the ocean. And excluding Indians not taxed. So why are they excluding Indians not taxed?
Because there were still wild tribes out there.
There were still wild tribes out there, but the key point is that the Indians were not paying taxes, so they didn't get representation. They don't get a say in how the money is going to be, how much money is going to be collected and how it's going to get spent if they're not putting any into the till. So they don't count. And excluding Indians not taxed, then they're adding on 3/5 of all other persons. This also establishes incontrovertibly that slaves are persons, which was not clear in the law before. So again, this is a strongly abolitionist clause. All right, the House represents the interests of the people and spends the money. That's why they're elected every 2 years, because they're supposed to come from the people, and they're supposed to be your neighbors, your townsfolk, so that if you don't like how they spent their money, what were you people thinking? What did you do with that?
I thought party was a good idea.
We ain't sending you back. You can't be trusted with our money.
But there was wrong.
Too bad. So sad. Go back and play your field.
All right.
Right? Close to the people. Supposedly understanding what needs are in the communities and what the interests and wishes of those people are that they are representing them. The Senate. Originally, the senators were appointed by the state legislatures, so their entire purpose was to represent the interests of the states as sovereign entities. We, the people of the United States. So we've got two sets of interests here. We've got the interests of the people, we've got the interests of the states. Those are not always the same. The states had their representatives to the federal government in the Senate. The senators were the elder statesmen, the ambassadors. Now that's why they have a 6-year term, which spans 3 representative terms and 1.5 executive terms. Their whole point of being there is to take the longer view and keep in mind state privileges, areas for state control. Section 8, Article 1, Section 8 is the enumerated powers, and depending on how finely you parse it out, there's actually about 17 areas where they may lawfully act. lay and collect taxes, provide for the common defense, borrow money, regulate commerce with foreign nations, with the Indian tribes, and among the several states, specifically because under the Articles of Confederation, the states were treating each other like foreign nations and imposing import and export duties every time something crossed a border. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization, uniform laws on the subjects of bankruptcies throughout the United States. Our bankruptcy code actually goes back to the Saxon tribes in the 900s. And this is one of the few areas where the federal government can have an effect on your life as an individual. Provide for the punishment of counterfeiters, establish post offices, patents, trademarks, tribunals inferior to Supreme Court, define and punish piracies and felonies on the high seas, declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, raise and support armies limited to 2 years because armies were a threat to the people of the surrounding area. Provide and maintain a navy with no limitation because it's a lot harder to be a bother to people if you're out on the high seas. Provide for calling forth the militia. Exercise legislation in the area that eventually became Washington, D.C. See anything in there about education?
No.
Healthcare, Social
EPA.
Security, national parks. No. OSHA. No. So the only areas where the federal government should have any effect on your day-to-day life is if you go bankrupt, if you're a counterfeiter, if you're a pirate, or if you're one of the people with the really fast swoops, and they give you a letter of marque and reprisal to go after the British ships in the War of 1812. We would not have won that war without the privately owned ships. Because we only had, what, 2 ships in our Navy at that point? Yeah. So those ships were better manned and better armed than the British naval ships, which also, right then and there, shoots holes, in, unintended, in the idea that people shouldn't have weaponry equal to that of the military.
That's right.
So that's the 17 of them. There's a lot that's missing, huh? All right. Section 9, they agree that they will not ban slavery until 1808 or later, roughly 20 years, a generation's worth. This is, again, was a compromise so that all 13 of the states would agree to the Union. And if Eli Whitney's cotton gin had been invented just a few years later, they probably could have done it then, because the economic power of the South would have been less. Also, a usurpation of power is not granted. They let in new states and allowed them to be slave-owning states. That's not here in Article 1, Section 8. There's nothing in here that says that we can let new states in and let them be slave-owning states. No. Section 10 of Article 1 are the few things that the states agree that they will not do. You know, now that we're all buddies here, there's a few things that we agree we won't do. We won't have our own standing armies. We won't have our own navies. We won't make treaties with other countries that are separate. Then a few things that the country as a whole also agrees that they won't do, which is to grant titles of nobility. The states also agree that they will not make anything but gold and silver coin for money, that they will not pass bills of attainder or ex post facto laws. A bill of attainder, attainder was something used by the king, that if he got ticked off enough at you, they confiscated all your property and all your family's property and left everybody destitute. Well, that can't happen.
Okay.
Well, there's also the ex post facto. So if you do something today and it's legal today, and tomorrow they pass a law saying it's not legal, they can't come back and arrest you for doing today what was legal today. And the states also agree that they will not engage in war unless they are actually invaded. So Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, California, they could all go to war with Mexico because they're being invaded. Actually, Nebraska could do it because it's being invaded with people coming over the border in Arizona and Texas. That's it for Article 1. That's the biggest, longest article in the Constitution. Article 2 is the executive. Now, let's just be very sure here. We do not elect a king. We do not have a strong executive branch per the Constitution. The president's job is actually much more like that of a hired town manager. Now, how many here are from Worcester proper as opposed to like local towns that have town managers? Okay. A lot of small towns, you elect the selectmen, and they make the rules for the town, and then they have a hired town manager who makes sure that those rules get implemented. Now, at the federal level, one of the jobs of the executive is to make sure that the laws that he's supposed to see implemented are actually constitutional laws, and if they are not, his job is not to implement them. But if they are, he must implement them. So why do we have this stupid electoral college? Because people always say, oh, stupid electoral college, just get rid of that. We people don't elect a president. We don't. The states elect the president.
That's right.
As guided and recommended by their citizens. And the reason for that electoral college, where the electors are apportioned the same as representatives in the House and the Senate, is so that there would be, the needs of every state would be taken into account. Under the electoral college, you can't get a majority to elect a president without consulting a small population of states. If we had a plebiscite, which is a national, who's most popular election, all the campaigning would be done in the high population centers, and the rest of the country would just be ignored. Who cares about Iowa? Who cares about Indiana? Who cares about Alaska, Wyoming, Rhode Island? Doesn't matter. We'll go to New York City, we'll go to Sacramento, we'll go to LA, we'll go to Houston, we'll go to Miami, we'll go to Chicago, and then we'll have enough. And the needs and the interests of the rest of the country and the rest of the states just goes poof. The Electoral College is an important protection for the interests of the states and the interests of the people. Natural born citizen. We have a limitation that only natural born citizens can be president. Now, one of the reasons for this is that they didn't want anybody in a single position of power as opposed to diluted. In the House of Representatives, there's 435, in the Senate, there's 100. Somebody who's not a natural born citizen and might not really have the interests of this country, their influence is diluted. In the executive, it's not diluted. We want somebody there who will represent the interests of the nation as a whole. And they didn't want anybody whose loyalty could be divided. Natural born citizen, they drew heavily on Vattel. We could go into that if people have questions later, but we'll leave that for now. The president also swears an oath to uphold the Constitution, not to enforce whatever laws happen to slide by Congress, not to do what he thinks best, not to end run Congress, but to uphold the Constitution as it is written. The president is also the commander-in-chief when the armed forces are lawfully called into service because somebody has to make final decisions. The executive branch negotiates and signs treaties, but they are only ratified with the advice and consent of the Senate, acting as ambassadors from the states to the federal government. He's also the figurehead for national functions. If somebody sends an ambassador, you want to shake one hand, not 535 hands. President reports to Congress, which has become the Kabuki Theater known as State of the Union Address. It defines that he can be removed from office for treason and for high crimes and misdemeanors. That does not mean big crimes. It means that he's in high office. Crimes and misdemeanors at that level of office are high crimes and high misdemeanors and warrant removal from office. Article 3, the judicial branch. The Supreme Court is not the sole arbiter of the constitutionality of our laws. Congress first. They're not supposed to write laws that aren't constitutional. The executive, yes, the judicial as well, if things are brought up to them, and the states. The states, when the federal government usurps powers it doesn't have, has the right to nullify those unconstitutional laws. The judicial branch oversees cases arising under the Constitution and under the authority of the United States. So if there's a constitutional area, they have jurisdiction, or under the authority. So bankruptcy law is federal court. Counterfeiting, that's federal court. But under the authority of the United States. Remember a couple years ago, the feds brought Arizona to court for the horrible crime of enforcing federal law that they couldn't be bothered to enforce? Right?
Correct.
This is how far our law schools have deteriorated, because they haven't taught the Constitution in 100 years. Instead, they teach case law. In Article 3, it says, and let me quote, in all cases in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. So the feds brought suit against Arizona in federal district court in Arizona. And nobody on the federal side, and nobody on the side of the state of Arizona had ever read the Constitution enough to notice that. Arizona could have sat back with a little bit of a smirk, let the feds spend all of that time to bring suit, and then had their lawyers stand up and say, Your Honor, according to Article 3, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, it says that in all cases in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. Therefore, I move you dismiss this case, as you do not have the authority to hear it. Because they didn't. Article 3 also defines treason, which is to give aid and comfort to our enemies, or to side with them. Yes. All right, Chris. Article 4 is federal and state interactions. It says that contracts are enforceable across state lines, so you can't skip out on child support by hightailing it to Wyoming. Yes, sir.
I just have a quick question about your last point.
Yeah.
About original jurisdiction. Your point about if a state is a party to an action, the Supreme Court should have original jurisdiction. If the Supreme Court had to take every case in which a state was a party, wouldn't it handle literally tens of thousands of cases a year to which a state is a party?
In cases arising between the states themselves or between the federal government and the states. If somebody within a state brings suit against its state because they didn't do eminent domain properly, and they didn't get enough money for grandpa's farm that had taken for the bypass, right? That's internal to the state, and that comes under state rules.
Right.
Okay? This is up a
So
level
this is
from that.
between the federal government and a state.
Yes, or if Massachusetts sues New Hampshire,
Right.
right? But not if somebody from Massachusetts sues the state of Massachusetts.
But I thought,
And not on the criminal side either.
and of course, because that, millions of cases a year are between criminal.
Well, on the
and
criminal
state.
side, it's the
But
state
I thought that
prosecutor.
original jurisdiction meant that the Supreme Court could, if it wanted to, take jurisdiction, but it didn't necessarily mean that it had to be heard in the first instance in the Supreme Court.
Shall have, not may have, shall have original
That's
jurisdiction.
definitive.
I'm sorry?
It's definitive.
Yes.
Shall have,
definitive.
not may
Shall
have.
have. MacArthur said, I shall return. Promise.
I just want to clarify one thing. The great author Elizabeth Price Foley wrote a book called Tea Party: Three Principles, and one of the three principles was limited government, unapologetic American sovereignty. The other one was constitutional originalism. She covers a great chapter on the Supreme Court and how throughout, and she does various case laws. And basically what her premise was is that as each time the Supreme Court hears a case, they don't necessarily decide the case based on, quote unquote, the Constitution, as in Law versus Madison, the Constitution is defined. No, what they do is they tend to go back to precedent. They say, well, what was decided in this case, and what was decided in that case back in the day? Well, what Elizabeth Price Foley found out was that anywhere between 6 to 8% of the time, each time a case is heard, the Supreme Court gets it wrong. They misinterpret the Constitution 6 to 8% of the time.
Right.
So therefore, as you go down the line,
Those errors are cumulative.
it becomes an accumulative effect, which is why today Judge Roberts can say, "Oh yeah, Obamacare, it's a tax. Yeah, go ahead." I mean, it's like a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone. It deteriorates down the line. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's actually the next point that I was going to make, is that anytime you base legal cases on precedent as opposed to the actual Constitution, is that if here's the level of the Constitution, the first time you decide a case it's here, but the next time it's here, and the next time it's here, and the next time it's here, and 100 years down the road, you're here, the Constitution's still down here. Deciding cases on precedent is absolutely wrong.
That's one of the reasons why in English common law, all cases decided by their highest court are vetted by the House of Lords. So that's the one thing that's missing in our judicial system, is that actual check on the power of the Supreme Court, which again holds the English cases to the actual English bodies collectively that are referred to as the Constitution.
Right, but one of the failures in England is that the Constitution is not written, and so there's an awful lot of things that had been common law for many centuries that are sort of swept aside now.
Tradition.
Right, well
Tradition.
that's why I said bodies.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So contracts are enforceable across state lines, right? It provides for extradition, again, between the states. So if Iron Mike loses it and takes Matt out, then he can't escape justice by hightailing it for Colorado. Sorry, Mike. Maybe Texas, though, because Texas, they still have the...
Texas is kind of weird, yeah.
Well, in Texas, they still have the defense that he needed to kill him.
Thanks. Thanks. I want to say thanks to everyone here for that. Yes, thank you.
Oh, but wait, it wouldn't hold because you're here in Massachusetts. Okay. Sorry, Mike.
Not because I'm a really swell guy.
Yeah. There are also rules for admitting new states, and it guarantees to every state a Republican form of government. Now, that doesn't mean the Republican Party. What it means is that every state will have a republic, a written constitution based on principles of law that no majority vote can overturn. It means that no states will be monarchies, no states will be theocracies, no states will be communist, no states will be socialist, representative, republican governments. Again, the big continuum from left to right, 0% power, 100% power. A republic is going to keep it towards the 0% power. All right?
If y'all ever have the opportunity to talk to James McGovernment, ask him what that means. Watch the expression on his face.
Does he do the gaping bishop? All right.
He's the guy who said in public that the Constitution is wrong.
Yeah, well, he's wrong. And as a federal official who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, if he thinks it's wrong, then he's either a liar or an oath breaker, and in either case, he should not be in office. Right. So, what's a republic? It's a state in which the exercise of the sovereign power, which resides in the people, is lodged in representatives elected by the people. And in a constitutional republic, those officials are limited and restricted by a written constitution. One of the things that drove me nuts at the State House yesterday was that, save our democracy demands democracy, 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 democracy.
Oh, I hate that word.
Oh, dear Lord in heaven. I was ready to kill.
Well, you packed, so you should have.
Not at the State House. Democracy. What's that? It's a mob rule. It's a lynch mob. A riot. A full-blown smashing the windows riot. That's a democracy. It's two wolves and one sheep voting on what's for dinner. James Madison said that they are spectacles of turbulence and contention incompatible with personal security or the rights of property. And all rights are based on property. As short in their lives as they are violent in their deaths. Does this sound like a guy who really was a proponent of democracy?
No.
No. And he was one of the softer spoken in terms of his objection to democracy, but he has this really great quote. Article 5 is how to change the Constitution. They knew it wasn't perfect. They knew they were going to need changes over the years, so they gave a way to do it. Either Congress can propose amendments that then get sent out to the states, or there's the Article 5 Convention, which is the same thing as a convention of states. Don't let the semantics fool you. And, Chris talked about that at the beginning, so I won't spend a lot of time at it. But the key problem with the Convention of States, Article 5 Convention, remember back to the Declaration of Independence. Whenever government becomes destructive of those rights, it is the right and the duty of the people to alter or to abolish. So if rights are inherent and predate, transcend, and supersede the Constitution, they can't be checked at the door. So fundamentally, you cannot limit a constitutional convention to only proposing amendments. Right? You can't do it. Predate, transcend, supersede. Can't be done. Even if they agree, even if the delegates agree, once they're in there, you can't hold them to it. There are at least 2 constitutions that are written already, waiting to be substituted in. The one that was written by the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundations. It's the Constitution for the new states of North America. It is ratified by a referendum called by the then sitting president, and of course there would be no vote fraud in that national referendum. It eliminates the states. The other is a constitution for the Socialist Republic of North America, written by Communist Party USA. It would be ratified by acclamation of the new government. And there's also a strong push for an Article 5 convention by, among other groups, a group called Constitution 2020, which has as its stated purpose to replace our current Constitution with something else by 2020. The something else they have in mind, they don't publish. It is another Soros-funded group. All right, next. All right, I already did this one. Article 6, jurisdiction. This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Now, lots of people say, oh, supremacy clause, that means that whatever Congress passes and whatever executive orders the president comes up with, those are the supreme law of the land, and everybody's stuck living with it. No, we didn't say that.
Nowhere. The word is pursuance thereof.
Made in pursuance thereof. So, pursuant to the limits of the Constitution. And in areas where the powers enumerated actually grant the authority to act. In other words, Article 1, Section 8, and a couple other little spots. In pursuance thereof. So when Congress passes a law establishing a Department of Education and the President signs it, does that make it a constitutional agency? No. And it should have been laughed out of existence before it opened its doors. And the duty of Congress is to refuse to fund all these unconstitutional agencies. And the President takes a hissy fit out of it. The Congress says, too bad. This is not constitutional, so it gets no money. And all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States. Does that say all treaties made by the United States?
No.
Under the authority of. Does that mean a treaty that they stepped in and said, we authorize this? No. Again, only in areas where the federal government has been allotted power by the Constitution.
Yeah, I don't see the word deal. The word deal isn't in there.
The word deal isn't in there, no. No, go back, please. Under the authority of the United States. So when they're talking about the Kyoto Treaty, there's no authority. Remember we talked about the just powers being powers that had actually been
Derived from the states.
that had actually been allotted to that level of government. Kyoto Accords were not under the authority of the United States. Null, void, and of no effect. The UN Small Arms Treaty, I keep getting emails saying, give money because we have to fight this. If we knew the Constitution, we'd laugh at it. Not only does the federal government have no authority to determine whether or not we can have particular firearms, the Second Amendment specifically forbids them from having any say whatsoever. So if we, the people, knew the Constitution, they'd talk about the Small Arms Treaty, and we'd say, get a grip. You have no authority. Stop smoking that stuff, guys. It's a key concept here. Okay, Chris, now you can go down. Article 7 is just how to ratify. Instead of and this is one of the differences between the Articles of Confederation, took all 13 states to agree. This Constitution is going to be ratified after 9 agreed. Okay, next. Another preamble. These preambles are really important because they're the mission statements. What are we doing here and why? A desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added. Declaratory, what does that mean?
Declare and make law.
To declare, to state. It's like, hey, pay attention here. This is something you need to know. And restrictive, does that mean license?
No,
No, what's a restriction?
they can't.
Place where you can't. So the entirety of the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, are areas where the states and the people say to the feds, hey, hands off. You had no business touching any of this. Get your grubby mitts off. Okay?
I mean, I have just a quick observation. In most of the pocket constitutions that I've seen, except for one, that got through the Fully Reformed Jury Association, did not have the preamble to the Bill of Rights in it.
These do.
Oh,
These do,
wonderful.
on page 20.
Who put those out?
I got mine.
National Center for Constitutional Studies.
I got mine.
I get a box of 100 for $35 postpaid.
Okay,
I buy many boxes a year.
that's good to know.
Don't leave without a pocket constitution. There's a bunch up here on the table if you gotta go. First Amendment, freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of speech. What speech needs protection? If I say on a sunny day the sky is blue, does that need protection? If I say she has a very pretty red jacket on, does that need protection? Yes. If I say these walls are made of stone blocks, does that need protection? No. So what kind of speech needs protection?
Political speech.
Political speech, speech that somebody might find offensive.
Matt needs killing.
What?
Matt needs killing.
Matt needs killed, yeah. No, he doesn't.
And you guys wonder why I always travel armed.
No, you do that because you're a sensible lad. So, the only kind of speech that needs protection is speech that somebody might take objection to. I find political correctness completely offensive. Because they want to stop me from disagreeing with them. It's censorship. But that's a good way to really throw a wrench at these people, is to say, well, I find your political correctness horribly offensive. Now what are you going to do about that? Freedom of religion. Not freedom from religion, freedom of religion. Which means that if you're a devout Christian and a gay couple wants you to make a cake, you can't be forced to make a cake. You notice that they're only asking that of Christians, that they're not asking that of Muslims.
No, it is targeted.
It is definitely targeted. Freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom to petition the government. Second Amendment. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government. It has absolutely nothing to do with self-defense or hunting or the National Guard or anything else. The purpose of the Second Amendment is that if the government becomes tyrannical, we can defend ourselves against it, which is why the government tries so hard to disarm us. No tyrant can really take control unless they first disarm the people. However, we also, because we have a right to our own life, one of our duties is to protect that life against those who would try to steal it from us. So defense of self, family, community, and state against everybody, up to and including the federal government, that has ill intent. Third Amendment, more protection of property. Fourth Amendment. More property, securing persons, houses, papers, and effects shall not be violated. What are your persons, your houses, your papers, and effects?
Your property.
Your property. Warrants, they have to show cause. And they have to say who you sue in case of unreasonable acts. Fifth Amendment. The right to remain silent is not the most important part. It's the nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And due process is a specific legal term that again goes back to the Magna Carta. It says, according to the judgment of your peers pursuant to a fair trial. Sixth Amendment, speedy trial. You don't have to wait years and years. Impartial jury. You get to be told the nature and cause of the accusations, confront the witnesses against you, bring witnesses for you, and have advice. Seventh Amendment. Preserve the right to trial by jury in lawsuits. Eighth Amendment. No excessive bail. Unfortunately, they did not define excessive. No cruel or unusual punishment. Again, those
The
are
only thing
not
I have a
defined.
problem with, that whole cruel and unusual.
What?
punishment.
What do you
Well, we
mean?
need some more cruel and unusual.
Well, they certainly didn't think that public hanging was cruel or unusual.
I believe, we should be considering putting people in those cages they require.
Stocks and pillories.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were also not considered cruel or unusual.
Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden might be pushing it a bit. Ninth Amendment, there's a whole bunch of rights that we don't list. People keep those. 10th Amendment, any power that is not specifically given to the federal government is not in the federal government's jurisdiction. Everything else is reserved to the states and the people, except for the few areas in Article 1, Section 10 that the states agree that they won't muck about with, like having their own armies. Go ahead. Thomas Jefferson in the Kentucky Resolution said that whensoever the general government assumes undelegated powers, its acts are unauthoritative, void, and of no force. And he also said in a private letter, on every question of construction, carry ourselves back to the time when the Constitution was adopted. Recollect the spirit manifested in the debates, and instead of trying what meaning may be squeezed out of the text or invented against it, conform to the probable one in which it was passed, in other words, original intent. Because we the people are the rightful masters of Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution. But how can we be the rightful masters of Congress and the courts and protect the Constitution if we don't know what's in it? Questions, comments, amusing anecdotes?